on the chat to see your inputs. I see we have about 21 people. That's great. And we also have, I'm doing this from Northrop Grumman with Mr. Rodriguez is here with me.
Hello, everybody.
And we didn't know the scores were going to come out today. And we want to, we do want to focus on what are our next things we need to do, but so instead of trying to prepare for that, we prepared something more general, and I think you're going to find it pretty interesting. All right, so first of all, though, I think maybe all of you have seen, but we had one gold team go on to the semifinals, and that is SHS Boys. So congrats, SHS Boys. Everybody, give them a round of applause in the chat. Tell them good job. There we go. Now, let's look at the stats here. So we had 5 teams here in the platinum. None of our platinum teams made it, unfortunately. And our highest gold team score, the XY Boys, they made it. And Mrs. Wood, somebody pointed out that the scores came out today, so I went and I went online and I downloaded them, and then I did what I did like last time, and that was I made a version of the docs that were did some analysis. So actually I have it open here, so it is in the same folder. So you can see that based on the scores that they got, you had to be in the top 25% to get there, and you can see that we were up there, we did well, but we did not cross in the 25% for these groups. You could, if you look at online, you can download it. It's an Excel file. You could go to the analysis and kind of see I sorted it in order of score. You can see who advanced and didn't. But I do want to congratulate though our platinum teams, because remember, even though SHS Boys is going on to the semifinals, they were a gold team. So in one way you can look at that, all the platinum teams are already better than the gold teams, no matter how they get. But
different competition class.
Yeah, different type of competition. It is very hard, and the SHS Boys were very close to being in the platinum teams anyway, so they are in my book platinum. But okay, back to the presentation. Oops, I was going the wrong order. Here we go. Okay, we have a couple announcements. I asked about internships. Several of you asked even last year what was going on with internships, and I finally got a hold of the folks here at Northrop that are going to be running the internships this year. They changed from last year. So those of you who remember Ricky Valencia, he's no longer doing it. He took another job, so he's not going to do it. But we're gonna, they did offer several people a chance to come back if you were an intern last year, and they said that they're going to be getting in touch with some of those folks right now and see if they're interested to come back. As far as new participants, the size of the group is going to be smaller this year than it was last year, so we're still not sure how many we're going to take overall, but there more to come on that as we figure out what the budget can support. There's also a note Ms. Wood added here. You want to jump in about this meeting?
Sure. They've been announcing it in the bulletin, and I know some teachers have it hanging up in their rooms, but don't forget the Boeing info meeting is February 5th in the library. This internship is for juniors only. We had many of the interns, I think there was all of them except for one or two, maybe two, were Cyber Patriots last year. So if you have questions on that, maybe Maya, you can or Jesse can talk a little bit about that internship as well if you guys have questions on that. But that meeting is on the 5th in the library. I believe it's at 5:30 in the evening. And also there is a no, Brennan, you have to be a junior in order to do the Boeing internship. So those are students who are going to be seniors next year. I don't know if you can watch the info meeting or not. That you would have to check with the Donna can live stream it. Sure. You have to check with the college and career counselor in the counseling office. She's new. I believe her name is Miss Maldonado. And she would be happy to answer your questions for you at that time. But there is also a possibility of a couple of tech firms that are in Torrance who are looking for interns this summer that I will have more information for you at our next meeting. Specifically, there is a tech firm in Torrance that works in securities that is looking for interns and is very excited about the possibility of having some cyber patriots. So we're working out a couple of kinks, and I will get back to you guys with that next week. All right, that's it for me.
Okay. So, all right, rules of engagement. Remember, you need to be an active participant. Classroom behavior. So watch what you're chatting. Mrs. Wood likes to save those chat streams for entertainment purposes and whatever else she wants to do. And please pay attention. As we discovered that some of you have been hiring out for some bots to follow along for you. And unfortunately, your bots don't usually answer the questions we ask. So we're going to try and find some bots right now. Let's see. Just Jessica Cheng, are you out there? If you are, can you type something into the chat? We'll give her a moment. Hey, she's there. She's alive. And let's try somebody else. How about, uh-oh, Elisa can't hear anything. Can somebody paste into the phone number that you can call to dial into the meeting? Because it seems like this happens with people that are trying to use the computers. Okay, let's look for another victim out there. Andy, are you? Is your bot alive? Yes, he is a bot. All right, very good. Okay, and thank you for keep helping on that. So now, Mr. Rodriguez and I have come up with some really great questions, and we're going to ask them sort of as we go, and then we're going to ask a bunch of questions at the end. So please pay attention. Here we go. All right. So we're going to cover some cybersecurity in the news. I just started listening to a podcast that has a daily update of things going on in cybersecurity and in particular, recent hacks, things like that are very interesting to kind of get you the idea about just what's going on out there, but also, it's something that I encourage you, especially if you want to go into the higher levels of platinum for Cyber Patriots. It's a great way to get your mind around what is this security business really all about. So I'm going to tell you how to find that. We're going to cover two things that I heard on the this podcast. One was they call it a campaign, basically an attack on the Pyongyang Pyeongchang Olympics. That's the Olympics going to be in Korea. And then this thing called APT-28. This is the team, it's Advanced Persistent Threat 28. They're a hacker group and something that they did with some DDE malware. We're also going to try to connect each of these things back to Cyber Patriot competition. And we're going to cover a little bit about steganography. Okay, so first of all, the podcast. So if you go to, I'm going to click on this link so you can see. This thing called CyberWire podcast. You can go to it from the web. So if you're into the Google Drive, you can click on the links yourself and go there and poke around if you want. Here's some featured podcasts. The one, this is the one we're going to cover. This is a thing that they cover right in the podcast, and then I found a link to the actual information. Whoops, that's not the right one. Back to the presentation. Okay, the author, the guy who was talking, his name is Raj Samani, and here's a link that about Raj. He works at McAfee, and they were describing him as a researcher, basically. So yes, the Delvin said is where the Winter Olympics are going to take place. They were attacking people who were going to be working on the Olympics. So he's the guy who spoke. There's a blog and a Twitter feed you can follow for McAfee and for Raj. But I was pretty persuaded by hearing him talk. He had a lot to offer and was really into basic research. So it sounded really cool. That link's in there. There's another script I found, and actually this doesn't belong here, but we'll skip that one for now. And then here is actually the link to the one that Raj posts as part of, oh, wrong one. It's actually, oh, here it is. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll move to the next page. Okay. We'll clean up these charts later, but here is the actual podcast. I already showed you that. And then here is a link to the to a description. We're going to go through this on here. So if you can get to the site, click on the link that takes you to this malicious document targets the Pyeongchang Olympics. Okay, it's going to take you through this, and then Mr. Rodriguez is going to help me ask questions along the way. So this description is posted on January 6th, but it's covering something that happened back in the end of December. So first of all, there was an email was sent to people, and it had an attached Microsoft Word document, and this is in Korean if anyone can read that. But it's translated to organized by the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry and Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. They sent it to an email address, icehockey@pyeongchang2018.com, and then they copied in the BCC lots of different people. And the attack was aimed at ice hockey here, which may have been a distribution list. It's not sure, it's not clear here, but it also could have been all these people supporting it. They actually did two versions of this attack. The first attack included an embedded implant into the file. It was an hypertext application file that basically executed some PowerShell code to directly on the system. Then they followed up with another one that used a hidden image to put this implant. Okay. I wonder if Joy, if your dad was listening to the same podcast I did. It's pretty interesting. All right. So first thing I want to point out is that This attack was, okay, this attack came on through what mechanism? For those who are paying attention. How did it start? Say, ask one of the bots. Email, Delvin, right? An email and PowerShell code, right? And a Word doc. So basically an attachment, Word document attachment. All right. So, and you know, the reason why email is so popular as an attack mechanism is almost everybody has it, and there's so many ways to bypass security and firewall when somebody basically opens up an email. It's like a Trojan horse, right? Okay. So here's some more analysis. They said that the email, where it was sent from, an IP address. So these guys are security analysts, and they're saying it came from a place in Singapore. The actual timing was, it was during, they were doing anti-terror drills in preparation for the Olympic Games. So they spoofed the source of the email, making it look like it was legit. Basically, they made it from, because the National Counterterrorism Center, they said the email was from, then it looked like, hey, we want to be prepared against terrorists for the Olympics, so so it makes it look legit. So who can tell me what spoofing is? Does anybody know what spoofing is? So Delvin says when you send another IP address, another than what? Yeah, Brennan he's onto something, making something look different than what it actually is. Yeah. Yeah, Delvin says like faking something, right. So what you're doing is you're faking like you are this email info@nctc .go.kr, right? So it looks like it's coming from the National Counterterrorism Center. But spoofing is something that you find a lot in cyber attacks, where they're either trying to hide their own identity or they're trying to make you put down your guard. In this case, they're trying to do both. Now, when they open the document, so there's a document and they opened it, it comes up with this in Korean, which basically says, hey, why don't you let Microsoft adjust to your current version of Microsoft Word. So, you know, the theory is that you open this and it says, oh yeah, I want to adjust to my current version of Microsoft Word. And then you click OK, and it you'll get the security warning. Some active content has been disabled. So if you click Enable Content, all of a sudden, you're going to be enabling this Visual Basic macro. And the macro is going to execute some bad stuff on your computer. Okay, this says that it's basically the macro launches a PowerShell script. So now you have another layer that's going on. Who can tell me what PowerShell is? Does anybody have a quick high-level summary of what PowerShell is? Yes, it's very powerful. Yeah, it's a command line for Windows, so it allows you to get in and like we always talk about shells in Linux, but it's a form of shell for Windows. So you can get in and run scripts or run commands directly into the computer. To tell Brennan to dial in on the phone. Okay. so it's executing a PowerShell script, and then the attackers used a tool, and this is called invoke PS image, and this is getting into steganography. So I found the link to invoke PS image. It's right here. Okay, GitHub. And what does this do? Basically, it can embed a PowerShell script in the pixels of a PNG file. Does everyone know what a PNG file is? Right, you bots out there, what's a PNG file? Yeah, it's a kind of picture format. It's like JPEG. But there's one thing that is special about PNG. It's not, they call it not lossless. Different compression algorithms would delete some of the data from the file. But if you're embedding a script, then you want to make sure that you don't lose any of your script in the compression. So this tool can get on GitHub. You can download, embed a script into, so the arguments are, tell the script you want to embed, the image to embed it in, and then the out file, and then it tells you a command. So here's an example. There's a picture of a kiwi, right? So Brennan asked, does opening a PNG run a command? No, not normally. Although there's sometimes you can get malicious code into it. But what this is doing is hiding the script inside an image. So if somebody knows about the script, they might be able to search for it. But if it's inside an image, they might not even realize the script is hiding inside. So, you know, they ran the script and boom, they added the stuff to the image file, and you can't tell any different because it looks just still like a kiwi. It doesn't look any different, even though you're hiding in there. All right, so Brennan asked, how are they able to run the script? Well, we're going to take you back to the description of this. Where'd it go? Okay. All right. Scrolling back here. So they embedded the script, an evil script, to take over your computer inside an image. Take a look at the image they input it into. It's this thing, Think Free Office by Neo, and it gives a bunch of other stuff, right? Yeah. So it still hasn't been, it didn't execute the script. What happened though is, remember, like the first step was to execute a macro, and then the second step was to execute a PowerShell script, which then executed that pulled something to pull down this image and then pull the script out of it. And you can, there's a tool you can use, this thing called Steg Expose, to find suspicious images. Now, another trick is that the scripts that they actually embedded were all obfuscated. Does anybody know what obfuscated or obfuscation is?
Yeah.
Anyone? You can at least Google it, right?
Time to pick a bot.
Picking a bot. Nathan, do you have any idea what is obfuscated?
Got one answer.
Okay. Yeah. Some answers. Right. Hiding it, making it unintelligible. Because if the script, instead of having all this gibberish, actually said Step 1, delete all users' files. Step 2, send to command control server, blah, blah, blah. Then you might get really alarmed when you see that. But if you see this, you're kind of like, I don't know, this looks like a bunch of garbage. I don't know what that is. Probably fine, and you'll move on. So they're obfuscating the things as well. So the point that the podcast made was this is very sophisticated sort of layering of, this isn't just some random hacker out there trying to see what they can do. This is something that's consistent with what they say is like a state actor, and with money and time on their hands to do this kind of thing. And so the other point that the guy made was, well, who would you say did this one? And the guy said, one of the rules is, and this is our friend, where'd he go? Raj says, hey, even if we might have our own guesses, we don't know necessarily, so we don't say who we think it is. That would be an example of, like, maybe it was North Korea, right? It's in the Korean language, it's attacking the South Koreans, it's coming from Singapore. I don't know, they could argue that that's it, but they also said that, it may be another form of obfuscation. Maybe it was the Russians trying to make it look like it was the North Koreans, just to keep everyone guessing. So, so this was really interesting too. So during the research, they went to the actual server, the command and control server, that was being contacted by these hacked machines, and they found, first of all, like a lot of machines had been actually started to communicate with the server, meaning that whoever they sent it to, they had some set of people that fell for it. And what else did they find? They discovered that it was a server that resolves to this domain name, and it was registered via Freenom, a free anonymous domain provider. So another like obscure thing, like who would have registered this address? Well, apparently a hacker. All right, so a few different lessons here. It used a PowerShell as part of the attack. It used steganography, and it was a target attack for like something in the world, the Olympics, and they were also using a fact that counterterrorism was something people would pay attention to and probably open the email and open the attachment. So watch out. Let's see, are there any summary questions I think we can ask?
So one good question for you guys is try to stop and think about emails that you receive. How would you, what way would you know that the email is coming from the person or persons they claim it's coming from?
Weird address. It seems sketch.
Okay, so that might be an indication that it's a suspicious email. Is there a way that you could tell that the email is legitimate?
Sometimes, so Nathan said if it's from an email address that you know, well,
but that could also be a spoofed.
That could be a spoofed email, right?
Email address, right?
Right. So you got to be careful, because just because it comes from someone you think you know, they could be pretending to be that person. So there's a lot of risk out there. And unfortunately, that's why there's a lot of attacks going on, and so much is through email. That's why you need a lot of different layers of protection, because even if you're smart, you may fall for one of these things one day. What's something that you might do that could help you in this situation? Let's say you clicked on it, and maybe you realized it was an attack, or maybe you didn't. Yeah, antivirus that's one.
Unless you're obfuscating your malicious code so that it doesn't get picked up by the antivirus.
Yep. Oh, there was something else I wanted to point out. I skipped over it, but you can see this when you look at it in more detail if you're interested. But one of the things it did, once it implanted the once it was able to implant the malicious code, it would start a task at 2 a.m. every day, and it will do this remote connection. So basically, and by the way, when you this particular attack, once it's been compromised, basically it's like you've given them remote access to your computer with all your passwords. So anything that's on your computer could be taken. It could also be used to install other software to attack others. And in this case, a firewall, the outgoing, it's doing a 443 port, which is actually outgoing, which you wouldn't normally block outgoing to 443, and you're sending something out of your computer, not allowing something in so much, unless once you establish an encrypted connection, though, you can control from remote. Let's see. Those are some good questions. I'm going to go over one other little thing. I'm not going to go into the same details I did for this. I'll let you guys look at it a little bit more or listen to the podcast. This is the Advanced Persistent Threat DDE malware. Now, in terms of this, back in November 8th, the Advanced Persistent Threat, or they call them Fancy Bear, and they believe they're Russian hackers, started tricking people by same thing, sending an email with an attachment that exploited a feature in Microsoft products called the Dynamic Data Exchange. And it basically allowed, when somebody would open a document, that it would download the payload and get you infected, get your machine infected. What I found when I followed up on this a little bit is that, well, when you Google it, you find that, okay, McAfee did their little thing about it same time in November. And then there's a note here from Microsoft. Let's see what it says. So in November 8th, they published it, and you can see there's an update. It basically said, it's an advisory. It's warning you that DDE can be dangerous. And, so this is saying, in an attack scenario, they could use DDE protocol and then convince users to open the file, blah, blah, blah. Well, you would have thought, okay, the Microsoft, why didn't they just patch this and make it so that it can't be done? Well, turns out that this is a feature that a lot of programs use, and if they disabled it, a lot of programs would stop working correctly. So Microsoft's idea back then was, exercise caution when opening suspicious file attachments. That's your protection right there. Turns out though, a lot of people complain, and when I Googled it, they were like saying, Microsoft's solution is leave it alone. It's not a big deal or whatever. So in November 8th, they didn't do anything. By January 9th, they finally added a feature that allows you to disable it, but it still doesn't disable it. It's still based. All right, so you can read up more on that if you like. So now let's do some question and answer for those who paid attention. Mrs. Wood, will you help pick the victims?
Sure, I'm always good at that. Let's see, we've heard a lot from Delvin and from Ashley and Joy. Let's see. Zeke, are you around? I'm picking on you, Zeke.
All right, Zeke. So, why don't you take the first question on there? What is steganography, and how does it apply to the Olympic exploit?
It does not have to do with the dinosaurs. Thank you, Melina. I appreciate it.
And everybody else, you could start looking at the questions that are coming up so you can prepare yourself for being singled out.
Zeke, were you with us at the very beginning? Does someone want to help Zeke out? See, Zeke, if any of your buddies are here. Isaac is here. He can help you. Please don't.
Find another bot.
Let's see. Brennan's ready to jump in. To basically hide something in another type of file that we used to the Olympic exploit when they hid the scripts in the image. I believe some of you guys did a CTF last year that had some stenography in it. Melina and Maya, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Yuli and Suyan and Shreya, maybe you guys were doing it as well. And Landon, I don't know. You guys had to take a picture and figure out what was inside that image, and it was a PNG, if I remember correctly.
Was that part? That was one of the quizzes during one of the competitions too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It was one of the forensic questions, I think. Okay, so that was a very good answer, Brennan. Thank you for following along on that first question. So, Ms. Wood, who should we ask the next question to?
I think Andy, what is spoofing? Andy Chen, you with us?
Okay, yeah. That's good, Andy. Spoofing is pretending to be someone else. In the case of you know, the Olympic one, what was the what form of spoofing was done for that? Yeah, very good. National Counterterrorist people. That's very good. Thanks for paying attention.
Do you remember what team they were doing things to or doing things about? Anybody? It's a bonus question. Nobody?
About what sport?
Yeah, what was the email? It's in one of the links. You could find it. Ice hockey.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. The next one is this is a tough one. I kind of want to open this one up to the general group. what could help to prevent this type of exploit? And then, in particular, Mr. Rodriguez and I are thinking of some best practices, maybe something that you often do as part of the competition. Antivirus would not prevent, well, it could prevent the exploit if once there's been enough time out there that maybe the scripts would be known, or the PNG file would be known as have a signature, and the antivirus could pick it up. But what other things? Okay, so confirming before you're opening, that would help prevent it. What about I'm trying to draw it back to something that we
In this case, how would you confirm?
well, she said by calling, making a phone call.
But it's a spoofed email.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So who would you call?
So what I'm trying to get you guys to think about cyber competitions. What in the cyber competitions do you guys do that might apply? We had antivirus, that applied. Is there something else? Firewall, it's not clear firewall prevent this one. Possible.
Firewall might have prevented the final connection to the command and control, maybe. But in all actuality, since they specifically chose 443, which is a very common port, it likely wouldn't have stopped anything.
Right. I've got I'm going to give you one answer, and then it'll give you something to think about. This exploit uses what feature on the computer? What was one of the features it used to do its attack? PowerShell. Yeah, PowerShell. So can you enable or disable PowerShell? Yeah, you can disable PowerShell. What about another thing is that what type of user can use PowerShell to the most effect? A smart user? What kind of user? A super user, yeah. What's another name for a super user? Yeah, it wouldn't be root on Windows, but yeah, admins, administrators, right? So here's the thing. A lot of times, people who are just running their own personal computers, they run their systems as administrators. So when you click on and you make a mistake like that, it executes a script within the PowerShell. It executes it as an administrator. And when you're an administrator in PowerShell, you can do a lot of damage. If you're not an administrator, then you'll be limited in what you could do. So one of the things that you guys do in the competitions is you make sure that people who don't need administrative privileges don't have them. And
so what is that practice called?
Yeah, that's a best practice. It's not to is to sort that out. Is anyone who's been exposed to the name or can Google what that would be?
It does have privilege in the name.
I'm not sure they've been ever exposed to it, but
you don't think so?
I'm not sure. Why don't you give it to them?
Let's see. You want to give them one more second to see if somebody can drum it up?
Google something.
Maybe there'll be a surprise the next time we're out there. Yeah.
Best practice or principle associated with permission levels.
Oh, there you go.
Wow, Brennan.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. Was he on he must have been on a platinum team. Must have been. Okay. All right. So next question. All right, so the next question, Mrs. Wood, can you pick a victim?
Who wants a turn? Raise your hand. Don't all jump at once. Mark, are you there? It's your turn. You're up. Ooh, Hannah, you just got thrown under the bus by Chloe. We'll pick on Mark first, and then we'll pick on you.
All right, so who is it?
Let's let Mark do this one, and maybe Brennan can help him.
Okay, Mark. So the question is, how could a user's account privileges help a hacker to use the exploit? And the exploit I'm talking about is the Olympic exploit.
But technically, it could be either exploit, right?
Yeah, either exploit. Dot mean he's thinking.
He's shutting down.
Okay, does someone want to help Mark out? I'm going to mute myself for a second.
Using arriving late as an excuse?
Well. All right, so I'm not sure if I just intimidated Mark or whatever, but it was basically what I just said was that by having admin rights, the hacker was able to use the PowerShell and inject the payload into the system. So if they didn't have admin rights, then they wouldn't have. So it was basically a kind of a trick. It was the opposite of the question we just answered about the best practices. So thank you. And if I intimidated you, that's okay.
We're only poking fun.
It's just to try to get people to focus a little.
Yes.
So, all right. How about the next one, Ms. Wood?
I think that goes to Hannah and Chloe. Go for it, girls. This is all you.
And what might be a sign your computer's been hacked? Crazy pop-ups, ads, yeah. I'm trying to connect it back to this particular exploit. Could be slow computer. What if you're trying to do Cyber Patriots and you're trying to do some analysis? What might you do? Think about a competition. Yeah, you could say it's running PowerShell scripts.
But how would you know?
How would you know?
Think forensically. You're looking for signs that something wrong is taking place.
I think the last two competitions, you guys have had to, no, not weird images. All right, I'm going to give you a little bit of a hint, and maybe this will stimulate some other thoughts. Remember you were looking for backdoors? How did you find those backdoors?
Checking running processes could be a good one.
Checking running process is good.
Listening
ports.
Right, that could be good.
Looking through the logs is good.
Another good one.
I mentioned that this particular exploit, every 2 a.m. it would do something. So you could check the, what's it called on Windows? The
scheduler.
Scheduled tasks. Or cron tab, yeah, for Linux.
Linux, yep.
All right, and I'm just going to answer the last question myself with Mr. Rodriguez's help here. We kind of answered a lot of these things, but the best defensive practices here in this particular case, the Olympic exploit, is not having the admin rights that are too high, disabling features like PowerShell if you don't need them, and then being very careful about opening emails. That's probably the best defensive practices here. And do you want to add anything, Mr. Rodriguez?
There's a lot of features that your email clients have available to them that come by default. For example, one of them is not downloading pictures, and a lot of people automatically enable those features because they don't like their emails to come with pretty pictures. So next time,
something to think about.
Yeah, next time we see that, might be worthwhile thinking about what's underneath that picture when you download it.
So I believe that's everything. Ms. Wood, do you have anything you want to say before we go?
No, I don't think so. Thanks so much, you guys, for coming in and sharing your answers and whatnot. And really great job paying attention today. Thank you.
Yeah, and don't forget to go back and look at those links. And especially for those of you who are really advanced, I really recommend you check out the podcast and try to listen to one and see what you can learn from that. You can listen right on your phone. You don't have to go to the web here. I think if you just search for the CyberWire podcast in your podcast app, you can find that.
You never know when the content of one of these podcasts is going to show up on the GoToMeeting.
That's right. All right. I'll stop sharing now, I guess, if I can figure out how. Thanks, everybody.